Be invited not to speak or leave the meeting. Moderator will control the flow of the meeting and will introduce each action, discussion, and informational item prior to the board discussion and voting. Quick reminder to everyone, please speak loudly and clearly throughout the meeting. And also keep your mics muted if you're not speaking. The background noise kills us here. So please keep your mics muted if you're not speaking. So the call to order will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Would everybody please stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing. I want to have a moment of silence for Instructor Phil Michael, who passed. At our last meeting, we recognized the fact he was in the hospital. He unfortunately did not survive the incident that he was in. So we would on a silence for Instructor Phil Michael. May you rest in peace. Thank you. But also like to ask staff if they could prepare a certificate of appreciation sent to Instructor Michael's family for his service to the. We can do that. Instructor, I appreciate that. And before we get any further, I want to introduce our new Constable Education Training Board Supervisor, Mike Vaughn, who started on July 15th. Mike, would you give us an intro? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. It's nice to be here. Nice to meet everybody and see everybody. I retired from the Baltimore City Police Department as a sergeant back in 2021. Throughout my years in Baltimore City, I've worked as a field training officer through various districts in the city. And as I went up through the ranks, became a sergeant, was assigned to different districts, whether the criminal investigative division, operations division, ended up as a supervisor entry-level training program in our police academy, where I led a squad of sworn and civilian staff putting on the police department's training program. That's when I retired back in 2021.
Oh, welcome aboard.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Hope you enjoy the ride.
Oh, yes. Yes.
All right. So then we're going to do introductions of the board members and then program staff. And during that process, we can establish that we have a forum. So I'm Chairman Craig Westover, and I'm a full-time constable out of Venango County, Pennsylvania for the last 30 years. And I'll introduce to my left, Trish.
Patricia Norwood Foden, Vice Chair of this board, and I am the Court Administrator from Chester County, Pennsylvania.
Okay. And am I right?
Harry Albert, the Constable, Lebanon County.
Okay. And then Major Cawley, you're on the call.
I am on the call. It's Major Bill Cawley. I'm the Director of the Bureau of Training and Education for the Pennsylvania State Police.
Okay, very good. And Constable Josh Staff.
Yep, I'm here. Joshua Stouch from Douglas Township, Montgomery County, and constable for a long time now.
Okay, very good. So we've established we have a quorum. John?
John Fallon, the manager of the Bureau of Training Services here at PCCD.
Morning, Deborah Sanford, Chief Counsel, PCCD.
Nick Hartman, program staff with the Constables Education Training Board.
Tracy Beaver, Constables Training Program Staff. Deb Williams, Curriculum Manager for PCCD Bureau of Training Services.
Then our online folks.
Nick, you want to?
Yes. We'd like to recognize Sally Berry, who's the manager, office director, I'm sorry, office director of OJPP. Allison Gantz, who is our communications. We also have Ekaterina Scholl and Dorothy Jacobelli from Fiscal. I believe I also saw Teresa Ford, who is also an OFMA, Office of Financial Management, on the call as well. Is there any other PCCD staff that I missed when I switched the screens?
Talk about the training contractors.
Sure. I'd also like to introduce Tony Luongo from Temple University.
Morning.
Then we also have Steve Shilo from Penn State Jazzy, as well as Tony Muha from Penn State Jazzy.
Good morning.
Anybody else? We good? All right, we'll move into our action items and we'll introduce each action item. We'll ask the board member making a motion to approve and second the motion to approve. State your name for the record for each motion. So the first thing we're going to be looking at is the minutes of the May 9th, 2024 meeting, and that would be page 2 through 11. Nick?
The board meeting minutes from the May 9th meeting can be found on pages 2 through 11. Does the board have any questions, any corrections regarding the minutes presented?
Everybody had a chance to review those.
Yeah, no questions.
Do I have a motion to approve those?
Make the motion, Harry Albert.
Barry Albert makes a motion to approve the minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Bill Cawley, I'll second that.
There's a second on that. Any further questions? Board members or consent? All those in favor, roll call vote. Trish?
Aye.
Josh?
Aye.
Major?
Aye.
Aye for me, so that motion carries. All right, we're going to go into then the unapproved financial report of the August 8th, 2024 meeting. That would be Ekaterina. Would you comment on the financial?
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to go over the fiscal report for the fourth quarter of 2023 to 2024 state fiscal year, which can be found on pages 12 through 17 in your board packets. I'm going to start with statement of cash receipts, expenditures, and commitments. That is on page 12. Under receipts column, the balance carried over from the previous fiscal year was $3,433,114 and 41 cents. The fees collected through the end of the quarter were $1,562,306.35. The total funds available as the end of the quarter are $4,995,420.76. Under expenditures and commitments, the total cumulative expenditures as of end of the quarter are $1,257,538.02. Total cumulative expenditures and commitments were $5,379,367.45. That includes $857,467.14 in administrative expenditures and commitments. The breakdown of this cost can be found on page 13. The total of uncommitted funds as of end of the quarter is negative $383,946.69. And the checks deposited for the class reimbursements are $109,804 even. That is also can be found on page 13.
So the uncommitted balance that we have of 6/30/2024 minus 382,000, has that come down from our last meeting, or is that staying the same, or has that gone up?
Now that significantly came down because we were able to liquidate some of the funds of the unused balance from the previous purchase orders we had as a result of the billing that we had received and processed. So we are moving in a good direction.
Good direction? Okay.
Yes.
Questions from board members? This report, anybody? Yes.
Is the checks deposited for class reimbursement, is that red because they haven't cleared yet? Why is it red?
It's
Brackets.
just the way how that is displayed on the report. So that is not an expense. It's just the way how that is displayed. It's no, they've been all deposited. So I think that was a question before. It's just our the way how that is displayed on our report.
Yeah, I mean, it's been that way for a while. I don't understand. I've had it explained to me, but those are the deposits. So people paying for basic, paying for failures, no shows, those kind of things.
Yeah, so that's
So is
the
that
revenue.
money going directly to revenue?
It's going right back into the fund.
Right back in the fund.
Right.
I'm sorry, Catherine, you had a comment?
No, we good.
Josh or Major, do you have any questions on the financial report?
No, not
I
for
do
me.
not have any questions. Thank you.
Do I have a motion to approve the financial report as presented?
Make that motion to approve the report.
I'll second Harry Albert.
Okay, Chris made a motion, Harry Albert, second. Any further questions? All those in favor, roll call, Trish,
Aye.
Harry,
Aye.
Josh,
Aye.
Major,
Aye.
and I also, so that has been approved. Okay. Our third action item is going to be instructor certifications, and that is Tracy Beaver, page 18 and 19. So Tracy, would you pick it up from here?
Thank you, Chair Westover. Penn State University Jazzy submitted 2 applications for consideration. The first is instructor Mark King. He is requesting certification for the general and firearms topics. He is a retired probation officer, and he was currently Act 49 firearms instructor under Penn State Fayette campus. And staff recommends board certification for Mark King for the generals and firearms certification topics. The second one is also Eli Kafanovich. He is currently a board certified instructor, and he is requesting firearms to be added. He is currently a Pennsylvania State Constable out of Beaver County, and staff recommends his board certification for the firearms topic listed above.
Do I have a motion to approve these instructors as presented?
Josh, I'll make the motion.
Bill Cawley, I'll
Josh will
second
make the
that.
motion. Pedro will second that. Any further questions on that from order from staff? All those in favor, Trish,
Aye.
Harry? Aye. Major,
Aye.
Josh?
Aye.
I'll be an aye. So I guess my question is, what's going on with Temple? I don't see anything coming through. So since you're here from Temple, Tony,
Yes, Mr. Chair. Mike Marcantino sends his regrets that he couldn't be here today, but he did update me anticipating the question. We have approximately 39 instructors in our cadre that are certified by the board. Some have been inactive for some time. They're just have not either been invited or been available due to their circumstances. So Mike is in the process of reaching out to those inactive instructors to gauge their interest and availability to teach. He also is anticipating submitting additional instructor applications in the near future, like as in the next board meeting. So now that he has his sea leg, so to speak, he's looking for qualified instructors to bring for the board. But at the same time, if we have folks already on staff that have already been onboarded and they're available and interested, we should extend, those opportunities.
you anticipate we're going to get flooded with a bunch of applications for the next meeting, or you guys going to try to run some sort of
I think we'll have a few, and I'm definitely, as we get closer to knowing how many, we can forward that information to you and John and the other staff. But again, I think if we have folks that have just simply stepped back from teaching that are already certified, extending those opportunities to them. And also to kind of looking forward to next year's training plan and schedule. I think now is a good time because our current schedule is confirmed, as far as instructors, but deepening our bench is a priority.
In fact, Chair, staff, we just met with the contractors. They're starting to work on next year's training schedule. So I know that's always an issue because they like to notify their instructors as far out as possible, for scheduling reasons, because a lot of these guys are still working, et cetera.
So currently, what's our requirement as far as how long are you out of the program before you have to go back through the process to be reapproved?
Basically, if you haven't been active in 2 years.
2 years. Okay. So these are folks that's been 2 years ago.
Yeah, we're right on that bubble. So that's, Mike has been conscientious about working through those and getting folks re-engaged. The other part of it is similarly Temple, if folks have not taught in some time, they may actually fall off of our payroll, which means also having, to extend new offer letters to them as well. So it's a process, but if we have qualified instructors that are on the margin of becoming inactive that are interested in teaching, we would like to invite them if they're interested and available. But it is our plan to, like I said, deepen our benches, especially in the areas where we need more instructors to match the instructor-student ratios.
So Penn State, Tony, do we have people that are also in that 2-year or more time frame?
No, everybody pretty much, Penn State does an annual purging, so we're all current. There's no idle instructors sitting. So,
Purge.
yeah.
Is that off the wall question? Does the training, the instructor snafu have anything to do with the limited firearm classes this year?
No, I mean, none of the schools have been in a position where they couldn't conduct training due to the lack of instructors. But of course, the next action item we'll be talking, if we extend, this 8-hour, make it an 8-hour day. Because now we can run 2 qual courses in one day, but if now we have to do a Saturday, Sunday, that could impact availability of instructors, So, and that's why I said we were just talking with the schools about next year's training schedule, because they're also waiting to the outcome of the next action item. Does the board approve the 8-hour firearms day? So.
Any other questions from board members? Trish, anything at all? Josh or Major, any questions on this instructor thing?
I don't have any questions. I want to come back to a topic related to this though, but we can wait until afterwards since this is about approving them rather than having that conversation. But I'll come back to it.
Okay. All right, we'll move on from that then, and if we've got that approved, let's go to then Mr. Powell, who's going to talk about the constable's annual firearm training options.
So on page 20, the board kind of reviewed this before, and now it's on there as an action item. We've discussed about bringing some basic fundamental training back in instead of just showing up and, qualifying. So what we proposed is, and we'll balance out the day, 8 hours, roughly 4 hours of, training, refresher training, and 4 hours for the qual. And so the kind of 3 topic areas we're focusing on based on a lot of feedback is, firearms presentation, a 5-count drill. Of course, there's, those are dry drills, just having people practice, because one of the things you see on the qual is people can't get the weapon out of the holster in time to get up on target. So they lose rounds there as far as that. Of course, sight alignment, sight picture. I mean, this is just fundamentals. A lot of people are failing at the longer distances. And there's a time, and I think people are rushing. They're not acquiring that sight picture properly and getting on target. And then reloads. And I know, Craig, you as an instructor, you've seen this. There's some parts in the qual course where they have to exchange magazines, and people lose time there because they're not efficient in their reload, or it's been a while, they don't practice reload. So they lose time there and getting rounds back on target. So Devin went through, we pulled about 4 drills for side alignment, side picture, and 4 drills for reloads. I would propose we put all those drills in the curriculum. That allows the lead firearms instructor, based on the training population, sometimes you got a group of people who are doing really well on side alignment, side picture, so maybe you don't feel you need to work on that as much, but you need to work on reloads or vice versa. So that will give some flexibility to the instructors as to what drills they use and, how they train them. All of those drills are roughly, 1 to 3 rounds. It might be you come up, fire a round, you do a reload, and then you fire 2 rounds to make sure you got the side alignment, side picture after the reload or whatever. And of course, you can do multiple repetitions of that. My proposal is we not exceed 50 rounds in that training. Because at this point, we're not providing training ammunition. That's a huge expense. When we eliminated the annual training in 2019, that 20 hours of training and ammunition was costing us about over $800,000 a year. Just firearms is manpower intensive, as we talked about, having enough instructors and ratio to students, and ammunition is another big expenditure. So the proposal would be 50 rounds of constable supplied ammunition. And, for training purposes, it doesn't have to be duty ammunition. It can be, just basic ammunition. It's more about the skill set than, it's not ammunition specific. So with that, I don't know if the board has any questions or.
So at some point, are we going to try to introduce airsoft, some force-on-force stuff? I know our laser shot units need
help,
major help, whatever we're going to do. I've thought over the last couple of years, there's been numerous classes where we had problems sometime during the day where the laser shot would go down and we had idle time. We were doing other things. And in fact, Tony Muhai had some ways of getting, keeping everybody busy while we were getting the laser shot back up and running. But what I wondered was on airsoft, it's, fairly inexpensive to acquire, the airsoft stuff. It's something that we could maybe incorporate, going forward here.
I think what I would do, Mr. Chair, is pull some firearms instructors in and we kind of talk about what are the options, because yes, the laser shot units are on their last leg. I know we've had problems with them. I don't think at this point the program can afford to replace them. They're expensive units. We bought these units back in 2012. 2018, I think, we sent them all down to laser shot to have them all serviced and updated, and that got us a couple more years out of these units. But I think like all technology, there comes a point where the life expectancy, you hit that number and we're not going to get much more out of it. So what I propose is a work group of firearms instructors to come up with what are effective ways to train judgmental training, and how do we do that? And then can we do it, what I would say is a cheaper training cost. So, and I think if the board adopts this 8 hours, we get a year of that under our belt while we develop how do we do judgmental training more effectively. We could probably implement that within the next year,
So. Questions from the board members? Trish, anything? All right. Not yet. Josh?
No, I don't have anything at this point. I think it's a great idea. I think we need to move forward with it.
Major?
I don't have any questions.
So the training contractors are here. I'd like to have them weigh in a little bit on this and what their thought process is on this expansion. Tony, Penn State, we'll talk to you first.
Okay. I think it'd be a very, very effective tool. From my past life, we're seeing that with the training at a different level that I did. And we could probably do it in the same facilities we have now. It's not like sim rounds or anything where you're getting into a lot of equipment issues and stuff. So, and it would be more effective, I think, in the long run with people actually interacting with people, because we see a lot of the constables now just standing and staring at the screen, even though we briefed them beforehand. Think of this as an actual scenario. The fact that it's just a video doesn't lend itself to that interaction that we could have if we had a role player or somebody there. So I'm all for it. I think it would be a great thing to do.
Capital County.
Yes, sir. I'll qualify my observations. I'm not a firearms instructor, but I do think it is, I like to consider this a pilot for a year to see and then evaluate, the feedback from the instructors and the students to see whether it's having it's showing improvement and, getting that, those inputs from the end users. But I do think it is wise to adopt this or consider adopting this for 2025 so that the constables have more practice, more time with the instructors and instruction. I think some of the considerations we've seen and issues we've seen with marksmanship and gun handling skills sort of degrading over the years. I think this is a step in the right direction. But again, having a way to evaluate it and then with that data come back to the board and say, yes, this was a wise investment in resources and time. And it's something either, we continue doing, or do we modify it or tweak it going forward? Or did it have no effect? I mean, that's possible as well, but intuitively, I think it's going to have positive effects, based on having the instructors have that time with the constables to sharpen those skills that we know perish over time.
Chief, any comment?
No, Mr. Chair, I concur with both Tony's perspectives on this issue. Thank you.
Are we planning instructor updates at the end of the year that we could
Yeah.
get this hammered out so we know going into the new year, whatever?
In fact, we're, with Deb Williams back on board, we're moving forward with our curriculum. So the curriculum for next year, both the in-person and will be, by basically October, we'll have all this done. So that then schools can schedule their instructor updates and then, staff can be there to go through this and address any issues that might come up from the schools or, the instructors on how we're going to do this, et cetera. So
We think in November or December or?
I would defer to the schools. I don't know.
I would probably say December for us, just because of everything like we did last year. That's worked out well for us, I think.
Yeah, late December, late November, early
Yeah.
December is our target for an instructor, in-house instructor development.
So what's the pleasure of the board? Do I have a motion to approve this? Trish makes the motion. Do I have a second?
Josh, I'll second it.
Okay, second, Josh does. Any further questions? All those in favor, do a roll call. Trish?
Aye.
An aye.
Aye.
Josh?
Aye.
Major?
Aye.
Motion carries. We implement that expansion on the training, that will make me sleep a lot better at night.
I just mentioned, Mr. Chair, just because this is involving firearms training, that kind of thing. So this will become an action item for the commission at their September commission meeting.
Okay. Interesting. All right, so from here, where we headed, Nick?
Up next is the discussion items, and the first one is John with the supervisor report.
All right, so you should have a copy of the supervisor report. This is just some various things to give a heads up on. I know Ms. Sandifer and I have gone back and forth on the regulation. It's mainly the regulatory analysis form. It's about a 10, 12-page form that we have to complete for this whole process, and we've been fine tuning. It's a standardized form, so anybody from the PUC to us who has regulatory changes, sometimes these questions are very kind of generic and broad. So for us to give a good answer so that the people who review this understand why we're changing it or, the significance. So once we get that completed, then it'll move forward through all the various agencies that get to look at the regulations and comment. So curriculum for 2025. The board had talked about piloting role of the constable as a prerequisite for basic. That is essentially built in Canvas. It's been just last minute reviewed by staff. And course, we notified the 23 constables who were in basic. We're going to ask them to, even though they had it in person, we're going to ask them to take this online because it's a little longer, more in depth, and do an evaluation. We also have a group of veteran constables, guys who are trained and certified and working. We're going to ask them to take it and provide feedback. And of course, any of the board members who would like to see it or, go in and take it, we can arrange that. We'll have it open roughly 60 days to get that feedback and then see if there are any things we need to fix. And then the goal is to roll it out in 2025. So prior to someone paying their money and enrolling in basic, we'll ask them to take this course. That'll help them better understand we're training you for judicial duties and what, that role is. And so maybe because we have had people pay their money, come to basic and say, oh, this isn't what I thought it was. And, so we're trying to maybe give them better information before they, pay their money for basic and commit to 4 weekends.
So do we envision when we go live on this next year, okay? They go through and they do that online thing before they actually register to take training.
Yes.
Will they have an opportunity right there? Will there be some contact number if they have further questions on if there's something they're just not clear on, that they'll be able to call staff or whoever to get some answers?
Yeah, I think initially we would just have them call staff, because it does go over, the insurance requirements and, the training itself and some of the other things. And I think initially for that first year, we'll just have them contact staff, if they have any questions. And then the other thing too, that will free up because then when they actually come to the physical basic, we would have a small review because it does cover some key court cases, and then have them take the test. But that would free up about another 3.5 hours we can distribute across other topics in basic that maybe we need more time on. And we have to take a look, do we allocate another hour to civil? Do we add it to, some of the other topics? So we still have to kind of figure that out, where that time that's freed up goes. So
I'm kind of hoping that's where the recommendations go, especially on the civil, that we add time onto the civil and also the criminal.
Yeah.
Those two portions at least, because I think it'd be well worth our while. I'm still getting a lot of questions on, from folks who attend a class, get my phone number, they're out in the field doing their first couple of levies, and they are still pretty much up in the air as to what they're supposed to do. So what I'd like to see is that expansion of civil. We actually have items sitting there in the classroom and actually have everybody go through and do an actual levy,
Sure.
do the actual paperwork, and try to get those kinds of, because, the routine that I use in order to separating the paperwork before I pull into that address, I've already got that done. What the defendant's going to need to have, so I have a method, and I think that maybe that's kind of what we're missing on, because they get out there and they'll say, I got all this paperwork, I'm kind of overwhelmed, separating this stuff out and who gets what. And so I know that on the civil side, we're lacking that.
a hands-on exercise.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. And we can, like I said, we can, have input, from board members, et cetera, and some instructors, where we allocate that time. So, and then we're revising crisis and prisoner transport in the basic. We had prisoner transport was the in-person last year. And of course, we updated some things. So now we're going to make sure the basic course is updated to reflect those changes. And the crisis intervention, it's been a while since we've updated that. The in-person next year is going to be mechanics of arrest. That's the hands-on, skill based. And again, our goal with these is, a quarter of it is lecture review, and then the rest is hands-on, going through mechanics of arrest and et cetera. And then the online courses, it's going to be one on levies, human trafficking, and then of course on domestic violence, the kind of awareness thing. Constables not, human trafficking and domestic violence, constables probably knock on more doors than police or anybody else. Serving civil papers, they come across a lot of things. They need to have an awareness of what they see and what do they do with that? Who do they report it to, or how do they handle it? So those are the online courses for next year. And then there's a list there of the various basic trainings and con eds and firearms, how we've done. At this point, we have 789 certified and active constables. And the only other thing I want to mention is Senate Bill 1267. First, that was introduced, and that was referred to, I think, the Judiciary Committee, and it's been sitting there since. It increases the surcharge from $5 to $10, and it increases all the fees that constables are paying. So I know, I've heard from some constables from some county associations, they're trying to talk to their reps to try and get that moving, but we'll just keep tracking that bill to see what happens. So,
John, if I can comment real quick.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
So I got to tell you, I really don't support that bill, and I know that's probably going to come to a shock, sound like a shock when you hear me say that. I don't support that bill as it's written because it is unsustainable, the increases that they are proposing on that. And I'm just going to throw it out as an example. And I'll just use a rough number. So if I go and get a guy right now, across the street from the court, and I walk him back over, with all the fees and everything for a single warrant, it's $55.50, right, with no mileage. And then if I do the same action, if this bill would pass and I take that same action, that individual with this single warrant, instead of paying $55.50 for this warrant in fees, it's now $160. And the counties that pay these fees ahead of time prior to the defendant paying it are going to take a look at that, and they're going to say that is unsustainable for them to front that money to us, and to do that. I mean, it's I'm totally all about that. The fee bill needs to be increased, and it needs to be a little bit more reasonable and more with the times of costs and things like that. And CETA obviously needs to be addressed and increased. But as that bill is written, my concern as a constable is that if that would fly and pass, there are going to be counties that are going to say, well, time out here. We can't afford to front this money at this point, at this rate. It would be cheaper for us to transfer those duties over and hire sheriffs or give the warrants to the police, or whatever it is they're going to come up with. I feel as though that bill would financially ruin us, because it's unsustainable. I mean, right there, just as that example, one warrant, a guy gets a 3111A citation, which I think would cost everything is like $140. One warrant, he gets taken into custody for that. The cost of the warrant is more than what the initial cost of the citation is. So I personally do not support that bill as it's written. I think it needs to be amended, and I think those fees need to be adjusted to make them more realistic. I mean, you can't go from what we have now to a 300% increase overnight. You just can't do it.
but what I will say, Constable Stouch, is when the fees were increased back in '06, the same kind of thing happened. The initial draft of the bill, the increase in fees, a lot of those did not survive to what was passed. Some were left okay, some were reduced. So, and this is just, I'm old, but my memory was probably 50% of those fees were from what the initial draft was to what passed were reduced in some way. It was all still an increase, but not as much as originally proposed. So I would not be surprised to see that, because you're right, the counties will have a say, and as well as some other people on that bill. So,
This is a great job for Dr. Ward, because I'd like to figure out, since the fee increase in 2006 to now, the inflation rate from '06 to now, if you factor in the inflation, really, what should the fees be? I think if he could give us a projection of what if we'd have had a COLA, if we'd have had a cost of living, because I truly believe that's the answer to this thing, is building in a COLA into the fee bill, so that when you suffer massive inflation years compared to not so much, that it's adjustable every year. It's not and I understand where Josh is coming from, but then I'm looking at, okay, so from '06 to now, I've had no raise. So does that get me somewhere where I should be on that number, or would Dr. Orth prove me wrong and say, no, Craig, this is really what it would be if we would have had adjusted for inflation?
well, I can tell you, I looked at that on the surcharge, the $5 based on the CPI. And if the surcharge was adjusted based on the CPI, every year. As of last year, we would have been up over $10 for the surcharge. I think it was close to $11. So, you know, that's interesting that here we are, we're still trying to get it to $10. And so I can talk with Dr. North and we can take a look at that. You know, you're right. I mean, where would the fees be, you know, when you consider inflation?
I think there's a lot of efforts by constables and associations to lobby their General Assembly people to make this change. But I think we put real numbers with it. If we said, here is what we're recommending, you know, whether it's an association, whether it's, you know, an individual constable talking to a state rep, to say, you know, this is what the pros are saying about PCCD. They've run the numbers. They're saying that if we did COLA since '06, this is where we should be on this fee bill. Then at least you're giving them real numbers. You know, right now we're just saying, hey, we need a surcharge increase and we need more money. But we're not really putting specifics to that. And so then when a bill comes out like this senator, where did his numbers come from?
Well, and that's what I don't know. I don't know who worked with him on this bill to say, you know, this goes from $75 to $100, you know, on a fee, or, you know, $5 to $10. So then they may have something that they based it on, but I don't know.
And I have to tell you too, you're going to be a lot better off running that CETA increase as a standalone bill rather than including that in those along with fees, with server fees. It's just the reality. Excuse me. The reality of how that works is, you know, the House and Senate look at these bills, and these bills that are 1 or 2 pages long are the ones that make it to the floor, right? Not the ones that are 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12, 15 pages. And I realize why it has to be a longer bill, because it's, you know, it's increasing fees, you know, in across several pages. But those are the ones that don't even get looked at. And in particularly, even if everybody is in favor of the CETA fee increase, they may not be in favor of the server fees. So now you're going to have a bill that's going to potentially die because they're not in favor of the other increases, but they're in favor of the CETA increase, and then you don't get the CETA increase because they don't pass the bill as a result of everything else. So I really think that a single standalone bill for the CETA increase is what needs to be introduced and supported, and a separate server fee bill that, you know, can be adjusted in the manner, you know, like what you were saying with a COLA and, you know, realistic numbers, because a 300% increase is not a realistic number. In my opinion, I don't think that's gonna fly. I don't know how you justify having a higher server fee than what a citation would be, you know, on a traffic, just as an example. I mean, I don't see how anybody can justify that.
Point taken. Board member Harry.
Yeah, do we have the number of not charged content fees from MDJs? Do we know how much that is a year?
I'm sorry.
The MDJs that waive the surcharge. The surcharge.
We don't in the current data. We do have dockets that surcharge was not assessed. The problem is we don't know the reason, you know. So I can take a look at our current data. In fact, I'm waiting for 2023's data from AOPC. I had a call with them, so we had to go back and forth on, because the other one that you would always ask about, and AOPC still trying to figure out how they can give us this number, is scheduled to print. You know, how many things are sitting there that haven't been issued? And so what we had asked them, we'd want like a snapshot in each quarter, because, you know, it's a snapshot in time. You know, today there might be X amount, but tomorrow a bunch get issued and, you know, drop. So they were still having to go through their data to figure out how to give us an accurate number, you know. So that's still, I'm waiting for that data to come back.
Yeah, I'd like to, it'd be great if we could, you know, when we're asking for that, we can also share with them the pain of it not being charged and see if we can get any leverage on making it mandatory.
Well,
I know it's hard, but
I know you're an optimist, Harry.
keep bringing it up.
Yeah, we've been down this road with AOPC and you know, Judge Opiella, that was his champion issue when he was board chair for a long time, was to try to get it as a mandatory field for them to fill in. But that did not occur.
Yeah, because the other issue is gonna be if it gets raised, let's say it gets raised to $25 and the MBJ's think it's too much, you're just not gonna charge. So that defeats the whole thing. And then just a comment on the budget, it's basically, at least the budgets I do, it's very common to submit the prices and then have it negotiated down to a lower amount. So I mean, that's just normal. I think that's okay. I mean, they'll look at those numbers when they get it and they'll say, no, this is too high, it's too high. They'll reduce it.
But, well, we even saw that. I know we pulled a bunch of data that was 2015 through 18. And we did have partial surcharges in there, $1, $2. So there were instances that judge, for whatever reason, didn't assess the full 5 and only stuck a partial. So.
So do I anticipate next meeting, the supervisor report's gonna be handed off to the new guy?
Correct. Mike will be running the next meeting in November.
So you've got a template now, Mike, as to what this is gonna look like.
Yes, yes.
Supervisor.
And unless the board has any other questions, that's all I have for the supervisors.
Deborah, you're here.
I am here.
Any comments? Any words of wisdom?
No words of wisdom. Then, we'll muddle along as the, we move forward with other people doing reports, as you mentioned. We'll muddle along.
Deborah, I haven't heard anything out of you today.
Everything wonderful.
Everything's wonderful.
Yes.
You know, I don't like to leave any stone unturned. You know, everybody has to weigh in, even Steve, not the end of the table. I made sure.
I appreciate that, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So that's, I guess the next part of this discussion item is a consolidated training policy.
Yeah, and this is just a draft. This is for the board's first look. At the last page, page 32, you know, over time, the board has developed some different policies regarding different things. And so we've had these kind of separate policies out there. And so trying to get in line just with other programs, I'm just trying to consolidate these policies into one document. So, you know, whether it's the grievance policy, the firearms, the testing, it's just a consolidation. And this is just a draft for the board to start review. At this point, there's no language changed in any of the policies. I left them as is. It's just trying to get it so there's one place that anything regarding the training program can be found, you know. And so I would ask the board to kind of look through this between now and the next meeting, and this will take several meetings to kind of review it. But if there is now anything the board would want to look at to change in any of this policies or to update, staff, we've gone through it. We didn't see anything major. There might be some minor editing. And then we'll, of course, this will all go through legals review, et cetera. So there's no rush. You know, there's nothing that already, these are things that are already in place. It's just a more of an administrative point, getting them into one document. So there's no real action. It's just for the board to start reviewing this. And like I said, this will probably go on for another 2-3 meetings. So we have, okay, we're happy with it. Now let's go through getting it updated. So.
All right, so we'll have a chance then to review all this and make calls to staff if needed during the interim. And
right, if you have any suggestions or questions or anything, like I said, that you see in the policy that you think should be updated, now's the time.
okay. Questions on it? Good. All right. Next time we have informational items, contractor updates. So. Nick, anything on that?
Just asking, Temple and Jazzy, are there any updates that you'd like to present that you haven't already discussed, like we talked about with the, instructor pools? Any fiscal updates for personnel that we need to know about?
I think John covered the curriculum development updates and the online training, which we're mid-cycle in the required online continuing education, and those courses will close in mid-November.
And one thing I was learning is Tony brought up of the online. Right now, we only have about 30% of the constables have completed their online. So again, the online training closes November 15th at 5 o'clock. So I would say to constables, if you have not done your online training, do not put it off because we see this. And I will say this, same thing happens on the deputy sheriff's side. But you know, that last 2 or 3 weeks before the close, suddenly we get a lot of panic calls. I know the help desk, you know, forgot username, password. And then people are trying to get their online training done, and it's kind of a mad rush. And so I would say, I would get your training done as soon as possible.
Yeah, I'm one of those slackers. I'm one of those guys. Don't be that guy. I'm one of those guys. It's been a friendship. Just haven't got around to it.
And just to add what John was saying, there is a period, if there is a failure after taking a class, and if you fail the class twice, there is a turnaround period of having that payment into program staff so that we can process it. And if it falls after a certain date, it's just not feasible for program staff to actually process the failure, to send the information over to Temple. So even if you think you have 2 weeks to take the online training, you still run the risk of potentially failing it and not being able to submit your payment in time for us to give you a second attempt, which can then jeopardize your certification.
So Craig shouldn't take it on November 14th in case it fails.
I wouldn't recommend it.
Okay. All right. I guess. Let's get cracking on that. We good, Dan? Dave, anything?
Nothing.
Any other business that's on the agenda? Do we have other business? Okay. So we're gonna move into public voice. Public voice at this point, we're gonna open the floor to the public voice session. Each person who requested a comment prior to the meeting will be announced separately. Please keep your comments to 2 minutes or less. If you have no public comments or questions, please indicate so when your name's called, if you called in, and if we had people call in, we have people online.
First, I'd like to recognize the 2 gentlemen here in-house.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Okay.
But do we have anybody else online?
We had one who wanted to speak. I'm not sure if he is on the call though or not.
Okay, okay. So this reminder, this session is being recorded. By asking a question verbally, you're consenting to the recording, retention, and use of any statements made as part of that session. So Tracy will have that list of who's requested to speak. So I'm with you. I want you to introduce these guys, and where do you want them to the camera? Because I'd like to have them on camera when they're talking.
I don't know if they want to come out in front of the board there, because that way they'll be on camera.
Okay, okay, all right, sorry.
So we have from the Pennsylvania Association of Licensed Investigators, we have Adam Nowicki
Yes.
and the president.
Let me jump first, because I'm introduce.
I should face that way.
Well, you can face the board, I guess, yeah.
Oh, I can face the board. Okay. Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity for allowing us to speak before the board meeting today. I'm actually not going to do the speaking, my associate Adam is, but my name's Rick Carpenter. I'm the current president of PALI, Pennsylvania Association of Licensed Investigators. We have about 216 licensed investigators around the state of Pennsylvania that are active. And my other full-time job is I'm the vice president, one of the owners of INA, Information Network Associates. We're a private investigative security company located here in Harrisburg. We're down by Fort Hunter. We have about 150 some employees. We do a good portion of those employees are on the security guard side. And we have investigations. We have an intel unit and we have digital forensics. So I'm here in support of our the chairman of our constable committee for PALI, who would like to say a few words to the board. So again, thank you.
Okay.
Hey, good morning to everybody on the call and to everybody here. I appreciate the gracious welcome this morning. My name is Adam Nowicki. As our president mentioned, Rick, I'm serve on the board of directors of the Pennsylvania Association of Licensed Investigators. I'm the owner and operator of Nowicki Investigations. I'm a private detective. I do want to say that, both historically and currently, I do appreciate the services that constables do provide throughout the Commonwealth. It's kind of an unseen, unspoken thing. I've had the good fortune of making many great friends over the years and worked with a number of constables. So really, what we wanted to talk about today, for just building an understanding and a relationship with the PCCD here, to help constables navigate the complexities of the Private Detective Act, to help prevent anybody from potentially inadvertently running astray of the Private Detective Act. And really, I see that as kind of a three-pointed thing, just awareness and education being first and foremost. And potentially, seeing if we could help the commission with developing any sort of information, awareness, maybe curriculum to put into training updates to help constables navigate, this matter. We do have members across the Commonwealth, as Rick mentioned, and we do get reports from across the Commonwealth. Felt it would be best to reach out to build a relationship and understanding and move forward from here. Anybody does have any questions, please feel free to ask.
So the Stanley Act from the 1950s, it's still pretty much a ruling that was made that constables could not, at the same time with holding the commission on constable, be a private investigator. Okay. And I believe that was a Supreme Court decision that was made. Does that sound right to you? Like 1953?
Yep, 1953, the Stanley Appeal, or yeah.
Stanley Appeal. So that law, as old as it is on the books, have you folks gone to like the General Assembly? Are you trying to update that from, because the Private Detective Act, I forget what the year was on it, but it was
1953.
Yeah, also. So I guess where's your efforts right now with the General Assembly, or is your organization trying to do something?
So as an organization, we're involved with, obviously, professional updates, training, education. We are working as an organization to update the 1953 Private Detective Act. Been working on that. As far as taking actions, as far as enforcement actions, that's something that, we would prefer not necessarily to have to do, but I have seen enforcement actions around the Commonwealth. Constables have been pulled into. We hope to do this through awareness and education. But as far as updating through the state legislature, that is something that's underway, but that may take some time.
There's some pretty good templates out there across the country, some of the states, So I'm a registered private investigator in Virginia, Commonwealth of Virginia. In Virginia, it's pretty streamlined. I mean, the way they operate, their training going in for a 4-year training class to start with, Con Ed every 2 years, photo IDs, the portion of if you're actually operating down there, the registration of the documents and how you keep track of, record keeping for the Commonwealth. So that, that Virginia template is a pretty good one to look at, as far as Pennsylvania, because I was amazed with Virginia. It is truly a statewide thing. Whereas in Pennsylvania, these guys, private detectives are county by county, they're approved by their individual county, where in Virginia, it's a statewide thing. There's no going through your individual counties. And I like that template that they used on it. It was pretty easy to navigate. The training was tough. I mean, it was a lot on the law, heavy on surveillance, wiretap, things of that nature, and so looking at the Private Detective Act here, it's pretty ancient. It's pretty archaic, you gotta admit. Yeah.
May I add a few more comments to your question? You touched briefly on it. The Private Detective Act in 1953 is way outdated. We understand that. The biggest problem, we're probably one of the only states in the country to do this. Each private detective has to be licensed by the county that he's doing business in. So we have 67 counties. We have 67 district attorneys that interpret the Private Detective Act the way they want to interpret it. That's what we're trying to consolidate. We have an active committee right now trying to write new language for the Private Detective Act. And on top of it, in order to have a security company, you have to have a private detective license in Pennsylvania. So most states, they're separate license, security and private investigators. Pennsylvania, we're not. And that's another thing we're trying to get changed. So we're actively working. We have a new legal counsel on our board, and we're putting together language. We're going after, on the political side, trying to get bills introduced, et cetera. But as Adam said, it is a lengthy process. We've been trying to do this for years. This is my third year as president, and I had 2 years, and then I was voted in for another 2 years. So my goal before the end of my tenure, at the end of 2025, is to have something at least before somebody to look at changing the act. Now, the big problem with the Pally organization is we have no lobbyists. And everyone wants a lobbyist to push their bills forward. So we're working with individuals that have connections to try to get the wording in the bills passed. So that's kind of where we're at on changing the Private Detective Act. And we, all of us know that it's outdated, even when it comes to the constables and other entities that do security work. So we're trying to address all of that, but it is a lengthy process. And we do appreciate if we have a working relationship with you guys, that we can approach this together.
Are you getting a fair amount of complaints through your organization about constables doing private security? Is that something you're seeing from all over?
We do, yeah. The private investigators that have security companies, ours included, have received complaints on constables doing what we deem to be should fall under the Private Detective Act, as opposed to the constables. Now, I'm not saying it's overwhelming, but it's enough that we have a constable committee and we have a compliance officer that tries to address. If we get complaints about constables, we'll go to the constable first, talk to them, and then we'll go to the district attorney in the county that the alleged violation is occurring and turn it over to them. Because we have no enforcement power, we just investigate and then turn over. So it's not out of hand with the constable complaints, but there's enough that the Pally is concerned about licensed investigators who have insurance, pay everything that they need to do to run a security company.
So your purpose for being here today basically is to make us aware
Yes.
and then offer information for possible training updates going down the road.
Yes.
It sounds to me, John, like the constable thing. We don't have lobbyists. There's not a clear definition of who we are. I mean, this sounds like the mirror image here, doesn't it?
Yep. And trying to get legislation.
And getting legislation.
Well, your boardroom is much nicer.
Well, our boardroom is Zoom.
Yeah.
We do have our annual conference. We have an annual conference that's in Pittsburgh this year. It was in Valley Forge last year. So we do have one annual conference and we have 4 meetings with the board. I guess that's what you guys have also is quarterly.
Yeah, so the board meets quarterly.
Yeah. So that's kind of why we're here. We're not here to complain. We're not here to lodge complaints or anything. We're just here to make you aware of us, what we're doing, and hopefully maybe we can work together on this.
Yeah. Question about the board. Trish, you have anything? Gary?
Nope, just like to have their contact info, cards or something.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Josh, anything?
No, nothing at this time.
Okay. Any other board members out here? Or staff? Or our training contractor?
We are harmless, so. Okay.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you coming out and talking with us. It's nice to have you here in person, to speak with us and, like
I'll make sure I get their contact.
contact and John, get your contact information and go from there. But yeah, it is very appreciative, and no hard feelings, it's like you're here for,
Yeah.
the information part of it. So,
Well, thank you again, everyone.
yeah.
Thank you.
Tracy.
On the phone, is Constable Abraham Smith out of West Warren County on the phone?
Constable Smith, you on the phone? I hear anything from Constable Abraham Smith. Are you on mute, Constable Smith? Going once, going twice, 3 times. Who else do you have?
There is no one else, Chair Westover.
No one else.
No one else.
I guess at this point, unless there's any other questions from staff or contractors, work members, I entertain a motion for adjournment.
This is what, our next meeting is November 7th.
So do I have a motion to adjourn? Who makes the motion? Do I have a second?
Josh, I'll second it.
Trish, second it. Okay. Roll call, Trish,
Yes.
Harry. Aye. Josh,
Aye.
Craig is an aye. Leave, maybe drop off. So, okay, motion's adjourned, or meeting's adjourned, and I'll look forward to seeing everybody on November the 7th. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.